Hi, everybody. This is Angel Arts. Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of Let's Analyze a TV series. Normally, it's just me and Colin. However, today we have a very special guest. Colin, do you want to introduce who this person is?
This is Danny. This is Danny from Oaxaca, and we go back how many years? Since 2006, more than almost 17 years. And so we have been, I lived in Tehuantepec, Oaxaca, Mexico. And Hark and I had part of our honeymoon back in Oaxaca. And the dream was for, I learned Spanish through my experience with Danny. And now Danny is helping Brody and Riley, our son and daughter, with Spanish and just everything. And so, yeah.
So today we are here because we're going to talk about a very special show that has been near and dear to our hearts. What show is that?
What show?
Danny, what's the show?
This is us.
This is Us, which Colin and I started watching. Well, Colin saw it first, and then I always wanted to see it, so we started watching it together. And then when Danny came to live with us, she had been binging through it. And now that the series is over, Colin thought it would be really cool for us to get together and talk about the show.
Yes, and I should say that this is, well, of the shows we have seen, Danny, of the series, would you say this is the most emotional for you?
Wow. I think all series is best. It's
Best.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh no! When I say series, I mean the shows, like Cobra Kai and the everywhere. But This Is Us tiene tiene la conexión más fuerte a la serie. This Is Us in comparison. But for me and Danny, that's relatively easy because almost any of the shows we've watched, we've kind of enjoyed. But with Hark and I, we are slightly different in various ways. And so I would say any show that's going to rival this is going to have a tall order because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Hark, but this is the show that we've most connected with, most mutually.
Yeah, you and I, personally.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's been good. So... yeah, I'm letting you take the lead, Colin. I don't know what direction you want to take.
Okay,
this,
so yeah, I mean, as usual, when we have these, it sort of pings around in various directions. But I think, to me, an easy place to start is, what would be okay, just a disclaimer. So, Hark would usually have a spoiler and a non-spoiler. So I guess we can talk this final season.
Well, the whole thing is going to be spoiler.
Oh, it is? Okay,
because we're talking about the whole series,
That's fine.
so the whole thing is going to be spoilers.
That's fine. No, revelaciones está bien.
Say whatever you want.
Yeah, okay. So I will say, well, my just opening comment about the thing is the end comment. That is, I've seen maybe series that may have been technically better overall, but I have never seen a final row of episodes that have been better. Like the final 4, I've described it. Oh, this is for the channel. If you even watch this, the channel would like This and Us. I don't know if it's necessarily the genre, but Lord of the Rings might be closer. In the same way that Lord of the Rings: Return of the King had like 18 endings, and it's just in a negative way. All the last 4 episodes felt like a finale and a plausible finale because they were so good, but they just kept going, and so it had the best ending of any show I've ever seen. So that would be my opening comment. And then as a framing, if you want, who would you say is the best character to you, the best actor, and your favorite moment in the series? So you can go one by one. So Danny, who is the character you think is the best in the show?
In the show, I think is it's difficult for me because all them are amazing. So I think my favorite character is Kevin because
Interesting.
because he changed in the final series. So that's I mean, I think it's more than the others characters. Yeah.
My favorite is Beth. Like, I
Yeah.
love Beth. I love Kevin. Kevin is probably my second favorite, but Beth has always consistently been. I love her sense of humor. I love how she plays off of every character, not just Randall, but everyone. Deja and her kids and Kevin. She plays off of everyone so well, and she steals the scene so many times. And I absolutely, one of my favorites episodes was the Beth centric episode with her dance and ballet.
A Little Island Girl Part 1, yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, for me, Beth was my favorite character, but in terms of who I thought was the best actor, I definitely thought it was Mandy Moore, just because Mandy, more than any other cast member, has had to act in more stages of her life than everyone, because she had to not only be her younger version, but also, you know, her older version when she got Alzheimer's and everything in between, and just you know, her depth really showed very well through the series. So I think that she was the best actor, at least.
And just a little tidbit that tidbit o pedazo pequeño is that when Justin Hartley, that is Kevin, had to go into old makeup for the last like bit, he was like, "How did Mandy Moore do it?" Because he hated it, and it was so like hours. They have to be in the makeup for hours to get into the character, and he just did it for like a few episodes, and he's like, "I don't know if I can keep doing this." Whereas she did this for seasons, you know. Yeah. So that makes it more impressive. For me, I'm surprised that, because Danny had talked about Beth so often, and it's hard to argue against the acting skills against Beth, because I do just think purely as acting that I think, or at least in terms of charisma and ability to elevate the material and just be so charismatic and play every note. I do think Beth is the best. And at first I was thinking, oh, well, he likes her because she's like funny and like light, but she has really deep, intense stuff too. So I do think Beth and many more. But Kevin, I think, I'm glad you said Kevin, because I didn't think of Kevin. But Kevin, to me, is certainly the biggest change, because the first season, one of the other questions, even though I like to be positive, and one of the minor points of contention during watching this show that we kind of grew is I have to sort of, it's important for me to sometimes accept like criticism within it, but the Kevin's first season, mostly his like fling with the girls, the theater business was terrible to me and a lot of people, but second on, Kevin is just great. And I don't love the teenage Kevin, or the college Kevin, but even he got better. And all other versions of Kevin and everything after 2 is just the best.
Kevin definitely was my favorite of the big three. Like, for me, there wasn't even a contest. He was my favorite. It was Kate. Like, early on, I think Kate was my favorite early on. Like, season 1 and 2. But then it flipped over to Kevin. So.
Yeah. ¿Puedo hablar en español?
Ah, sí.
Estoy de acuerdo con Hark. Beth, para mí, como mujer, representa una versión original, una versión natural. Su actuación fue muy natural, como si el personaje realmente existiera más allá de la pantalla y pudieras identificarlo fuera y dentro de la serie. Es un personaje que quisieras contar con alguien con esa madurez y forma de pensar y de actuar y de apoyar, porque ella fue un soporte muy grande para todos, para Kevin en su momento, para Kate, para Rebecca incluso. Entonces fue una parte crucial en la historia. Kevin me gusta porque es un personaje que no esperas que tenga un cambio y parece que la serie pasa por todos, todos van adquiriendo madurez y él simplemente no tiene un final. Él no logra llegar a ese final y me siento identificada porque es como yo que digo, ¿cuándo va a ser mi historia un final? ¿Cuándo voy a tener una verdadera historia, un cambio? Y la transición de Kevin niño a Kevin adulto es, es increíble, es increíble.
And I am not a perfect translator, but and there may be certain details that are going to be lost in there, but so if there's anyone speaking Spanish, you're like, that's not what she said. It sounds like Brody. Or, you know, there was more. Sorry about that. But in a nutshell, Beth, one of the things that I like is, I think that you said, is that it's almost like she comes through the screen, like as a real person. Es tu parte de la pantalla, no?
Sí.
So like she comes through the screen as a real person, and she's just as a support for everyone. And I think one of the criticisms early on, justifiably, about Beth, or maybe just in general, is that she didn't get enough storylines or you know. But I feel like her support is she was supported everyone, and she gave Kate and Kevin and I will add, and she had the best thing in the Rebecca death speeches or whatever. She had the best one, like her with Rebecca and the motherhood. Just didn't really think about it. That was wonderful. And for Kevin, that she'd say in the different ages that Kevin was, like each age he had a good actor, and the growth was the most apparent for Kevin. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And I guess I said my I kind of agreed with all those actors wise, so I feel like we can move on because there's so many good things and we're gonna run out of time. So I always say eat the bad vegetables first. So is there anything I can anticipate what they're gonna say? Was there any part or storyline that was an exception of not being good or really angered you, etc.? So I know what they're going to say, and I kind of agree, but it was not because of the storyline. It was because of my experience with it. But anyway, what was your worst moment?
Yeah, Danny can go first.
Yeah, Danny.
When Toby and Kate oh my god, my heart is broken. Because I remember when my parents
Divorce.
Yeah. So it's very hard to understand this episode, and you want that they are stable, but no, it's real. The situation is real in many I don't know how to say matrimonios.
Yeah, in many marriages.
In
Yeah.
many marriages, so it's
At the end of the second to the last season, when you discover that they got divorced and she was marrying again, I was willing to wait till the series ended. I was willing to wait it out till the end, and before I finally decided my full opinion of it. And even at the series finale, my personal opinion was it was an unnecessary divorce. It was an unnecessary plot point. If their goal was to try to give Kate some sort of significant arc for the final season, I had enough faith in the writers that they could have written something else that would have been just as fulfilling or meaningful of a story arc, if not more. In fact, I'm very convinced they could have done a much more meaningful story arc. And because I don't know, I just felt it was unnecessary. And they even even within the context of the shows itself, they showed that they were self-aware that a lot of people were not going to be happy about the Toby and Kate split, or that they would completely favor Toby over Philip, for example. Because even in the second to last episode, there was that joke when Toby was talking to Rebecca, and he's like, "You can tell me, like, you love me more than Philip." And I know for sure that was a very meta.
And we should get back together, right?
Yeah, I know for sure that all of that was a meta nod to the audience. To the audience who were thinking the exact same thing. So I thought the fact that the writers themselves knew that this was going to be a tough pill to swallow, and they knew that people, even at that point, so close to the finale, would still be Team Toby over Team Philip, to me, that felt like a slap in the face. Like, you were aware that this was going to be an issue, yet you still did it. And so for me, that was one of the reasons why I was deeply disappointed by that particular story arc, because as I said, I started off the series loving Kate. She was my absolute favorite, and as the series progressed, in my opinion, she kept getting the short end of the stick in terms of storylines and story arcs between the big three. I thought Randall got excellent stories, and Kevin got excellent stories. Kate got a few. She had a few, but overall, they were not equal, in my opinion. They were definitely not equal, and she was I felt that her character was not done justice in terms of the equality of the quality of the story arcs of the three children, or the big three characters.
Yeah, I agree with a lot, and some of the ways you said it, like, now I'm forgetting. But specific new things that you said about that storyline, ways you phrased it, I was like, oh yeah, that's good. I like that, and maybe it'll come up when I try to go through my opinion of it. I am more mixed. I do think we had long discussions about this, like, every time, but I do think there was a degree of bias, and I don't think, although I completely agree that given the quality of the writers, that they could have set upon a different arc,
yes,
and done a different thing.
Yes.
They also could have come out better and not have those residual issues. So, and there are various other things you said, I agree too, that may end up coming up. That said, the part I think of what you're saying is unfair, at least to me, is that Kate did not get, like, this particular storyline was mostly bad, or that it didn't serve her. This wasn't strong. I think there are clear issues with the storyline, i.e. Philip. They did what they could, but really, like, it was not. And at the end, like, they did the best. They did what they could, but it was misbegotten fundamentally to have Philip be randomly at the last minute have, like, one episode where it's like Philip. So the Philip part of it was, I think, the major issue. Pausing for a second, I don't think that the nods were an insult to the viewers. I think they were a respectful, funny, fitting nod to people who had misgivings about it. I don't think, like, oh, we really screwed up. It was kind of like, well, it was one in character for Toby to say he was better in a joking way anyway, and I think it was also just a way to say, oh, those people didn't like it. Yeah, we get it. But I don't think they were saying this was bad. I think they were sort of fan service to the people that wouldn't have. But anyway, that going back to the main core of it, my core objection to it, even though I agree with a lot of it, is that a lot of really powerful, incredibly well-written, acted stuff came out of the Kate and Toby marital discord. And it's painful, like Danny's parents. It's absolutely painful, and I don't think it's the best divorce story you could have had. But I don't think that... I think of all the Kate storylines, actually, which maybe speaks to Kate didn't get a lot of great storylines, I think it was the most... some Kate and Toby moments were stronger than any of the Kate moments over the course of the series. Like, their fight in San Francisco, the, like, 9-minute whatever it was just masterful. I mean, it took all of the things that, although Hark and I guess Danny would disagree that they should have stayed together and they should have, just continued or whatever. But that fight, and I usually don't like couple fights, it just makes me uncomfortable or sad. But I just thought that the writing and the acting of it really brought up issues that have been bubbling for so long and legitimately rendered issues. And it did it in a way that felt in that moment and in that scene earned and was just incredible. Now, there are certain other things along the way, but I don't think to write it off as Kate didn't get a good storyline through the divorce thing. I don't think that's fair. I think a lot of that was some of the best material they've had. But I get that it's on a faulty premise. I get it.
But I still believe, like you said, Colin, if they did do a different arc, I still believe they could have still had a strong scene like that fight. Mm-hmm. It might have, but in a totally different context. So I agree with you that scene was the strongest one. But I think that they could have had their cake and eaten it too. I think they could have still had a totally different story arc and still have had a scene just as strong as that one, if not stronger.
And Saturday in the Park, I mean, that was wonderful as well. Like, it was horrifying, but the thing with the kid, with oh my god, with Jack and the visual, the direction where he couldn't see, and you took Jack's perspective, and going to the park, and the steady buildup of just tension and acrimony throughout the episode. That was better than any Kate. She eats food and she keeps eating food. It doesn't. The Beth and Rebecca genuinely had great stuff, and early Kate and Toby had some great stuff. But I just think that trumped those at least 2 episodes trumped a lot of Kate being with that random babysitting that girl storyline early on. I just thought it was a strong. It had a lot of strong enough things to, be a strong overall storyline. But I get your objections, and I agree largely. Good things. All right, let's shift to happy. There's so many happy things, but rather than have it be individual episode or individual part yet, I think this would be an interesting twist, and this feels like something Hark would do, have an offbeat question, or he likes unlikely character pairings. So rather than directly say a great episode or part, what's any part that reminded you most of, that impacted you most in your life? Que un parte de un episodio que está más conectado más duramente a un episodio en su vida.
Wow, es una pregunta interesante y difícil porque todos, cada episodio tuvo un final o una escena importante para mí en cada temporada, pero la parte final, me recordó mucho a la transición de etapas del ser humano, de Jack con sus hijos en el baño, Entonces para mí fue la más importante, que englobó toda la historia, porque son las etapas diferentes de cada uno de ellos. Cuando Rebeca no quería irse y quería estar presente para sus 3 hijos, debe ser muy difícil esa separación, y es que son muchos capítulos, no sé, pero esa fue la mejor, el final para mí, creo, sí. Pero fueron muchos finales, ¿estás de acuerdo? Entonces, toda la serie me ha gustado cada parte, pero sí.
So she's saying that it's a very difficult question because they were just at the end of, I believe, each episode or each part, there were just so many emotionally climactic moments that it's really hard to narrow it down. But some of the ones that she had mentioned were the shaving scene in the last episode, which is one of my favorites too, but I'm just translating. And some, well, Jack with the 3 kids, and I think there was 1 or 2 other scenes that she mentioned. But no, and the timelines, the like the épocas, or the like different generations, and like so that was what stood out to her. All right.
Yeah, I mean, even though it was the last episode of the series, like the shaving one, I related to because I think I was very much like Kate growing up, where I was aware, even at that age, that you need to savor those moments. Because I was one of those kids who did not want to grow up. I did not rush being an adult. Like, I knew that, sure, when you're an adult, you get to drive and you get to like earn money and buy whatever you wanted. But for some reason, I always was self-aware that that I needed to cherish childhood, probably because it was told to me. Like, there were several like people and shows and movies and like have told me that you need to cherish those times, and I think even as a kid I took that to heart, so much so that when I turned 13 I actually cried because I realized I'm not a kid anymore, and I hated the idea of not being a kid anymore because I wanted to savor the moment. So I kind of feel a little bit of validation when I saw that episode, because I do feel like I have been savoring it, like even up to this point, and even back in then, that I did not, sort of do what most kids do, like Kevin and Randall did, which is they just want to grow up really fast, and that was not me at all.
And this is new for me. I never knew this. I never knew that thing about Hark at all, about and él dice que durante su juventud no quiere. ¿Oh, entiendes?
Sí.
Si no quieres. Okay, sorry, but that was really that was moving to me. I didn't know that was such a big thing for you. And keep going. I can add on, but keep going.
The other storyline that would have impacted me if I had seen it like earlier was when Kate was struggling to have kids. Because, if I had seen that at a time prior to us, going through the surrogacy process, I'm sure that storyline would have stuck to me deeply. So, yeah, that's the other thing. But since I had seen the scene after we already had our first kid, it didn't affect me as much, but it would have. I know it would have.
The thing I think affected me most, or at least the most profound experience I had, was when Hark and I watched the Beth and Randall's marriage seeming to fall apart, because the first time I absolutely hated it, and historically I have gotten very angry and don't want to watch stuff if people are not cheating, but like their marriage is gonna go downhill. And I felt similarly to how Danny and Hark said to feel about the Kate and Toby storylines. Oh, they're just, throwing in conflict so that they can. And to a degree, I think that it was like the fact that they didn't really return to much of that after they brought it to its conclusion. So after season 3, they didn't really have much of that discord. I do think it was manufactured to some extent, but when we went back through it, so I think that's when we actually started it, right after season 3. Or I was like, I was going to go through, and then I started going through with Hark. And we got to those 4 episodes, I was like, I'm not going to watch them. You can watch them separately, and then we'll resume in season 4. But I think he actually was watching it a little on his own, and I was like in the other room like, oh, okay, wait, that's funny. That's good. All right, I'll watch a little bit of it. And I was sucked in initially because I thought, oh, this is so painful. It's such a, just awful experience. But maybe because Hark was there, or I'd already gone through the initial, trauma of it, because I think my friend and my childhood friend, I effectively got divorced, or he divorced me. And I never, I was sort of abandoned by him, and so that's why I think don't generally get upset about cheating or divorce or anything like that. So once I was emotionally removed from that the first time, I was able to just take it artistically and for the execution of it, not the personal connection to it. And it was really good. Like the way that they were building up the not just problems in their marriage, but like that they still had sort of loving tendencies, but they were also like Randall was smothering and she was like allowing it, and it was still funny and it was still funny and really complex. So for me, I hadn't had the experience before. Hark and I will either really enjoy something or, we'll be at odds about it. But this, I went into something hating the storyline, and then I came out because of seeing it with Hark. I really enjoyed it. I mean, not like the pain parts, but like if something is sad or that doesn't make me. That doesn't. I can appreciate that. So it just went from something that was fundamentally something that I hated to something that I kind of loved. So that was awesome for me.
But I think the reason why the Randall and Beth like divorce-ish, like almost, or marriage problem storyline didn't bother me at all compared to you is because I felt that those circumstances felt natural, and to me it didn't feel forced, because I still feel, in my opinion, like the situation that Toby and Kate were put in felt more forced versus Beth and Randall. So with Beth and Randall, I kind of bought that, but with it was harder to convince me with what was going on with Kate and Toby. So yeah, so that was just the only thing that I noticed.
Yeah, I just a final clarification. I don't. I buy Kate and Toby's problems. I don't buy the Philip aspect of them. But and I can understand saying that it's not going to rise to the level of divorce, and they did certain parts when they were sniping. It was that seemed forced anyway. So another one which this could go so many different ways. Any line. So does any particular line or phrase stand out to you? I tend to be much more dialogue driven, I feel, than at least Hark, I would say. But over the course of 6 seasons, I feel like some line or phrase are part. So, una línea o frase o expresión o dicho de la serie está recordando en su mente.
Creo que la más famosa de toda la serie, ¿no?
Los limones.
Sí, los limones, exactamente. Pero también al final Jack dice, algún día lo entenderás, a Kevin y a Randall al final en el espejo. Él dice, algún día entenderán todo esto. Entonces son frases que marcan mucho mi vida, pero también hay una frase que no recuerdo exactamente, pero William era muy muy bueno en frases de la vida, y su actuación también fue espectacular para mí, y entiendo porque él recibió a Rebeca al final. Entonces él tenía muchas frases de vida, de aliento, de motivación. Entonces no recuerdo exactamente, pero son como las más específicas, ¿no?
And so she said, there are so many, and clearly if life gives you lemons or whatever, the famous one, but the one that going back to the mirror, of the kid to Kevin and Randall at the mirror, that someday you will appreciate this, or you'll realize that these moments matter and last. So that's what she said basically.
I don't remember. I mean, the lemons ones I only remember because they've said it multiple times throughout the series. But I don't think that would have been my favorite. It was just the one that they remind you of all the time. So I feel like Toby has said some things that really resonated with me that I really like. I just can't remember what specifically he said, but I feel like some of the things if I could go back, like I feel like there were some things he said that were some of my favorites. But in terms of just, it wasn't necessarily a specific line that he said, but in the train when Rebecca was about to go to the caboose and like lie down on the bed, and William was telling her about, the fact that you're so sad means that like the moments were really that good, and he was saying things like, the end just means, the beginning of another good thing or something along those lines. So I don't think any of those lines were specifically that resonant to me, but as somebody who, and I know Colin has felt the same way, as somebody who did fear death, and most people do, most people fear death, there was just something about that whole episode that was very comforting to me, and like I now feel very much like secure about the idea of me eventually dying, and I don't think that my fear of death is nearly as strong as it has been after watching that episode.
That's great that it made such an impact. Well, I definitely remember the specifics, but one that's really, really minor, and almost no one I think knows it, but there was an episode in which it's not even technically a line. It was written on a notepad in a scene when Randall and Kevin are camping, and on his notepad, Randall has written, "Make sure to talk about Karate Kid." Ironic, because we love Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. Make sure to talk about the Karate Kid, because Kevin really likes that. Mm-hmm. Like, which it was just the most small yet searing character moment I can think of, because it's both shows the, like, I don't know, the chasm between these two brothers that and how sincere Randall is in wanting to improve it, but it also is so perfectly in character that a young child would write in their notepad as a task to mention this carefree movie, but he's not carefree. He needs to write it in a notepad and tell him that. But he's actually chosen the right one. Like he it's just, and I know Hark was upset about that the idea that it took them so long, which is justifiably upsetting. But the idea that they, for so many decades, they would go through and that be an issue. But yeah, I'm agree with Danny. Kevin is the best character, maybe, because they could go from that to the race episode and this brotherly love episode where they were just deeply immersed in conversation about like identity and race and their sibling issues, and then go to that moment at the end in the last episode when Randall accepts Kevin's being an authority, or he accepts his taking on the thing with the mother, and Randall sort of just smiles but he's so relieved. He can like take off that burden that he's put on himself for so long of caring for the family, and he has this fundamental respect for Kevin, and to go from that notepad to here, you take the ball, and I believe you can make the shot. That's a powerful thing. You can't really get in a movie. That takes 30 years and six wonderfully wrought seasons, I guess.
I think Colin will not be surprised by this, but I think the episode that had the most like twists I like twists. So certainly, I think it was called The Stranger or A Stranger, because it's the very first time you meet Cassidy and Malik and
interesting.
Jack, like Junior, or not, well, young Jack, Blake Stadnick, the blind Jack. Is the first time you see those three. That was the one that was my favorite, because you meet all these new characters and you have no idea what their significance is, which is what the show likes to do very often. Even in the final episode, I think they did that, or the second last episode they did that. And then the big reveal at the end was just, for me, really cool, like finding out how Cassidy and Malik and Jack all fit into the Pearsons' like lives was really, really cool. And plus Colin knows like how much I shamelessly love Jack, like the blind, well, yeah, the actor and the character, like blind Jack, Blake Stadnick's character. So yeah, every time he appeared on the screen since then, I was like, oh look, it's Jack, because I love that Jack.
For me, I mean, Memphis is just unbelievable. Oh my god, now I'm forgetting the title of it. One Small Step, the Nikki episode. You Are My Moon, which could have been overall, but it's not. It's so earned. I mean, the last four, at least the Miguel episode and the train and the family meeting, and really all four. I mean, you can make arguments for all of them. I mean, the Vietnam, we didn't even touch on Vietnam. Nadie de las personas habla de Vietnam. Es una indicación de la ¿cómo se dice? De cantidad de momentos en esa serie, ¿no? Mm-hmm. So, like, we didn't even talk about Vietnam, and then that was like a sort of quintessential moment in the series, but it's just so deep that we didn't even talk about it. But the two that I want to just mention are, because it's so, I don't know, because maybe they're not known. Well, one is known. Okay. The one obvious one, to say that Super Bowl Sunday is not known is ridiculous. But it was maybe my favorite of the rewatch, because when I watched it with Danny, and it's hard to underestimate how great it was that Danny and I shared it, and how moved she was. We'd watch 4 episodes in a row, and she's like drowning in tears, and we are so deeply connected. I think we're actually more deeply connected to Cobra Kai, but like but seeing Super Bowl Sunday, like, because it's famous and known and plot twisty, I just forgot how great it was. And when we were watching it together, Super Bowl Sunday, like, not just tears, you think tears. It's hilarious. It's so funny. Like, almost, the episode is just absolutely hilarious. And then when they squish the bug, or the bird, or what did they kill? ¿Qué está matado? En el cumpleaños. En ese...
Cuando
Tess o Deja mata an animal. It's okay. Sorry, but there's a really, really funny. It sounds not funny killing something, but like they accidentally kill something in the episode, but that becomes a like humorous parallel to the like Jack's death. And it's just brilliant, and being able to share that with Danny and us like flipping out was amazing. And then, but the second one is the two. Is it the dinners and the dates? The episode where there's the present day Malik and Deja, and then the Jack's the teacher and Randall, and Kevin's inappropriate comments and loving the tension. I mean, when Hark and I watched it together, I was just cry city. But then when Danny and I watched it, it was the same thing, and it doesn't get nearly the acclaim as other episodes. But it's just, and Jack reading the poem at the end, and Randall reading the poem to Jack, and Jack like trying. Like it's really close to the mirror scene, I think, because the shaving scene, because it's something where Jack is not familiar with this poetry. He says he is. I like poetry. He's not. But he's trying, and he's doing what he can because it's important, and he wants to share something with his son, and it's just beautiful. And I think that they intercut Malik and Deja's first date, and then going along their thing at the same time, and it's just it's beautiful, and yeah, I love it. We've been dealing with all this like intensity, but does any what are your funniest moments in the show? What's anything that stands out the most humorous?
Well, like I said, anything with Beth. Whenever Beth has funny dialogue, it's always hilarious. I think one of my favorite parts was when all of the like non-Pearson family people were together, like Miguel and Beth and Toby, and they were sort of, I think it was while I believe it was when Kevin was having a therapist, and he was trying to have all the family in with the therapist and talk to the therapist. I think that's what it was. And that left the rest like kind of just talking about what it's like to be like the third wheel of that party. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that got a little bit not only real but also funny too, if I remember correctly. So, yeah.
Por mí es igual el conjunto, la alianza de Beth con alguien, porque me divertí mucho cuando imita a Randall. Imita a Randall y Sophie imita a Kevin, y es divertido.
Yeah, that was very good. I love that.
Sí, y otras ocasiones fue en la alberca, en el pool, en sus tres diferentes batallas con Randall, con Kate, con Kevin, cuando los pequeños son cada quien quiere aprender algo diferente, y ellos se quedan solos, y es divertido. Para mí fue divertido porque cada uno es especial, cada uno es diferente.
Yeah, and she said that Beth and when Beth and Beth is imitating Randall, and Sophie's imitating Kevin, but also interestingly, the pool. So in the pool scenes, some of the things in the pool scenes, when it was funny but also meaningful that each kid was so different, and that they're each trying to get something different out of the pool. But yeah. And then before the funny thing, because I don't want to forget this, because this to me, I don't know, this is in the top 5 moments of the series for me, like in life, because it wasn't directly the series, but shortly after we finished the series, we went to a funeral, or excuse me, not a funeral, a memorial service for my grandma and my grandpa I never met, and my aunt, and like it was a mass funeral basically. And at the funeral, but I don't think this would be the case just because it was so close to the series, but it was really difficult to not think in the mind muscle of the show, because especially the last 4 episodes were so deep and reflective, and in the way that it sort of trained my brain to think, this is happening now, this is happening 40 years from now, this is reflecting on 10 years from now. And it's been kind of sad because, and thankfully for Danny and Hark, that they can appreciate it. But at the funeral, when I tried to, or memorial service, when I tried to mention This Is Us, and how they do that in such a powerful way, that is just seeing all the generations, and how you don't need to fear death as much, in the same way that Randall said, what's really the point? but Deja says, I just named my child William and I never even met William. You know, and so it was just, I don't know if I've seen a show that is more profound about the inner relations of different generations in life. And so it was hard to separate myself from that, but I wouldn't want to separate myself from that.
Yeah.
And the final thing at the memorial service that, again, the people there couldn't get it, but it just, I get chills now thinking about it, is Brody. And in the midst of the memorial service, there is Brody, this like gleeful laughter and joy. And that is one, clearly the show, because it's just this deep pain and sadness and tragedy, and then just, you know, uproarious laughter. But his age was really important, because when we're remembering all these people who are like 70, 80, or 100, they'd be 110 now, but they will, but there's still a kid who's you know, not even 3 years old, who will hear about all some of these things that the people who've just died have done, and he will become better because of that. But he also doesn't need to get bogged down by that. He can just be a kid running around happily, and it also fit my Aunt Tess, who was quite an impish, you know, giddy person, even though she was an old lady too. So,
and even at the memorial, my brother-in-law, whose name is also Kevin, we the two of us went off to have a walk together, because again, in Kevin's word, it says we need to escape because, you know, us non-Burbacies need a chance to like compare notes about, you know, the craziness of the family, which is again exactly what I was talking about from that This Is Us episode. So even Kevin and I, we did that during the memorial as well, as the third party people, as the third party members from that family. So.
The
funny thing, you didn't say the funny thing.
I didn't say the funny thing. I'll just try rapid fire. The Madison, because it hasn't been said. The Madison and Beth, when they're doing the little, what do they call that? Not court jester. The I forgot. And like classical thing. The people are over they're commenting on everyone, was absolutely hilarious. There are others, but I'll leave it at that. So when you think back on the show, like if you were to have an album cover for the show, what scene or image would you leave with? So if this was a CD, what would be what image or scene would you put on it? Would you put on it? And then my other one was, what is something that you hope that about the series that you hope that another series in the future can make you feel that way?
¿Qué imagen? Creo que la imagen de que representa This Is Us es la unión por sobre todas las cosas en familia. La aceptación de cada uno de ellos, el melodrama, no sé, que parezca real, que sea real, parecido a la situación que vivimos actualmente. Porque la imagen que viene a mí es Jack, es quien inicia todo esto, entonces no sé, es difícil describirlo porque cada serie o cada proyecto diferente tiene una historia diferente y creo que será difícil ver un This Is Us diferente en otra serie, ¿estás de acuerdo? Entonces no lo puedo imaginar, no puedo imaginar en otra, pero creo que es muy completo el escrito en cuanto a capítulos y acontecimientos de la vida real, como la cuestión racial, las diferencias raciales y cosas de la guerra y cosas que temas que no se pueden tocar tradicionalmente, ¿no? Por el pensamiento tradicional o conservador que hay, ¿no? O sea, eso para mí sería lo mejor para en otras series.
So I said a bunch of things. One that, well, for the image finding that was difficult, it was hard to narrow down to one image, but like Jack, I guess the various ones involving Jack, because he was like the beginning and end of everything seemingly to a degree for her. And in terms of quality or things that you would like to move on to the other series, the sort of reality of being able to really feel something that real, something that you feel like just these people exist. But then she later brought up the fact that it would touch on like racial issues and the Cassidy. She didn't explicitly say Cassidy, but like the PTSD and a lot of things that she hadn't traditionally seen or weren't in a lot of things or certain conservative approaches would not touch on those issues, and so she'd like to see that in something in the future. So yeah, all right.
In terms of the album cover, it would just be everyone on the train, because the train was where you had, all the characters, including every single version of the big three, like all in one place. So that really is the only place that they all exist. So for me, it would just be like all of them posing on the train, with Rebecca and Jack and pretty much William and everyone, and even like the doctor who delivered the kids, like everybody pretty much was there. And then in terms of other shows, I think one of the things that made This Is Us unique was the way that the format of the show, like how their storytelling was doing all this time jumping constantly, time traveling between the different generations, which I don't know how many shows have done that at least consistently in every single episode. So like it would be cool to be able to see, I hate to say it would be cool to see other shows do it, because I feel like This Is Us did it first, and I kind of want them to be like the original. I mean, they probably will be the best known like original who's done that sort of storytelling. But if others do it and are able to do it justice, and able to touch on similar issues like This Is Us did, I feel like there were definitely many other issues that they could have focused on a little bit more, like like the LGBTQ with I forgot the eldest daughter's name, who was Tess, who's like lesbian. It would have been nice to delve more on her, and we also joke about how Annie like didn't really have anything. She was just kind of there. She was like the Judy. If you watch Family Matters, she was like the Judy who fortunately didn't disappear at some point, but they didn't really give her much, and it would have been nice to have found something to give her instead of, oh, she's the cute one. That talked a lot with William, and that was pretty much her role, was she's the cute one who talks to William a lot. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, Hark actually took mine, which is cool. The intergenerational thing, but being hopeful, I actually think it can be. I think it can be done in the sense that, like, there's a better example I can give, I guess, but, like, when Breaking Bad ended, I was like, Better Call Saul, are you being serious? Why would you do this? Like, why do you take something that's just so, like, perfect and do something almost the same, like really, but you can take an idea and you can really use it. It's just, and in this case, it's not even an idea; it's a format, and I feel like that format can be used effectively, and that's why we're watching Everwood in the future. Everwood, this will be a thing. It's just wonderful in various ways too, but it doesn't have that. And I think that makes this is us unique, but I do think it can be taken up by another series in the future, and I'd be hopeful they can do that. Just a final note on that, because we haven't. I literally said the word the Miguel episode, but the editing in the Miguel episode, the flipping through, and the Rebecca dying episode, when she was nursing the kids in the beginning of life, and then they were nursing her. I think it's Yasu Tanita is the editor in it. Deserves a shout out to no one. She'll never get it, but like, it was just masterful. Maybe that editor will go on to another show and do that. And so my album cover. And maybe if this is a Hark has an image, or I'll create it and you can put it as the I don't know, screenshot for this conversation. Is the parallel line down that they did. That is the pool episode. I think it was just the pool part 1, part 2. But in the pool episode, which is to me the first great episode of the show, even beyond the pilot. I mean, the pilot was good, but like fully as the pool episode was amazing, the 4th one. When they're all lying as a family at the pool, like little kids, and that's just, their little kid family bliss. But then I think it was pool part 2, when all is not bliss, they're teenagers, but then they end up on the bed, like sort of not getting along as well, but they're all sort of, Kevin is at the foot of the bed, I believe. Kevin's at the foot of the bed, and even though they're not in this like, idyllic little kid, all, hugging each other, they're all in the same place, and they're all together, and so I think that would be a cool, like, parallel image, but showing that even if life and family life is not going to be great all the time, but you're still a family.
One thing that I wish the show did, I think I mentioned this to Colin, because I thought it would have been a really cool idea, and I felt like the fans would have loved to have seen it, just because the theory of it I think is neat and interesting. I thought it would have been really awesome if they had done at least an episode, or maybe a few episodes, that showed what it would have been like, what would have happened if Jack survived, if Jack actually lived and was actually living in the present day with the kids. I thought that would be really interesting to explore.
Didn't they show, or is that different? What
No,
was the parallel? They had the parallel universe one, but that wasn't Jack alive.
But it wasn't Jack alive. It was still. I don't think it was Jack still alive. I don't think that was.
Okay.
I don't even remember the parallel universe.
There was. We saw it in Endo.
Okay. Well, I don't think it was Jack alive. Not that I remembered. Because I don't know. I thought that would be really interesting, like a what if situation that the show, which pulls a lot of like twists and turns and surprises like that. That would have been a really cool thing to just explore. And even if people thought, oh, that would have been too happy, and people would be a little bit sore about that because they would be, oh, why didn't you just let that happen instead? You could even take it a step further and say, if there was a situation where Jack lived, then Rebecca would have died. Mm-hmm. And what would have been like if Jack lived and Rebecca died? I would have loved to have seen at least an episode or more exploring that storyline.
This is us, the reboot.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been a reboot.
No, I'm saying a reboot.
But yeah, I thought that would have been a really interesting experiment, like an episode experiment.
Let's say outro music. The use of music in the show was great as well, and the lighting, and the song. What's the name of the song? The song that keeps getting present at the house when the house burns down, and then when the house is built, and there's so many great aspects. But
my favorite is when Jack fly in the helicopter y deja a su hermano y se va. Esa canción.
The Vietnam, the classic Vietnam song. Yeah, that's so.
Well, thank you all for watching our series review of This Is Us. I hope you all found it interesting if you're fans of the show, or maybe even learned something. Who knows? Thank you again to both Colin and Danny for joining us.
Our first en dos idiomas.
Yeah, I know. But yes, thank you all.
And if you comment, I will 100% reply to your comment. So feel free to comment or ask questions or anything on specifics. Or
Very cool. So thank you very much, everyone. And until next time, love yourselves and love each other. Bye bye. Adios.
Adiós.